Let's go to theme number 2. Please post that, friends. You bet, Lorna. I can do that. All right. That's cute. Jennifer said, I have a friend who says to me, love you anyway. Not quite sure how to take it. That's great. Oh, love you anyway. There you have it. Okay. Let's see, what else do I have here? Jenny, you're so cute. Jenny said, this is totally off the subject, but I love it anyway. Love all things Kimberbell, but a hint. I love ordering kits, but please no more Kimberbell tape. Way too much, as I guess I've ordered a lot of kits. Just a suggestion. You must be going to a lot of events. That's awesome. You know what? You can never have too much tape, though. Just saying. There you go. All right. Oh, thank you, Deborah. She always loved my Yellowstone ring. She thought it was gorgeous. I like that one too. Yeah, so I just switch them up every now and then. $20. All right. All right, theme number 2. What are we going to talk about today? Today, I thought I would, in honor of a Valentine's Day coming up, you can see this cute quilt behind me. Maybe let's see if I can see how cute that is. That's love notes. How many of you did love notes from Kimberbell? I should back up a little bit. Is that the cutest? Do you see how all those are like real pictures hanging down from there? You've got the cameras, you have the piece blocks and the typewriters that are 3-dimensional. That out comes the words. The cute little mailbox that has a real zipper installed in it. So much fun. A lot of you have done this one, right? Do you have it ready for Valentine's Day? Some of you are saying it's still in the box. Time to get it out of the box, my friends. If you have not gotten it out, time to get it out. But this is such a fun quilt. I love it. I love the stamps. I love everything about it. The little mason jar with the hearts coming out. So fun. And it's for both sewing machine and embroidery machine. So what I thought I would talk to you today, this quilt inspired me to talk to you about how to make Hugs and Kisses blocks. Okay? Hugs and Kisses blocks is what we're going to talk about today on the sewing machine. And a Hugs and Kisses block is made, let's see, for those of you who might not know what it is. Ooh, look at me going backwards here. There we go. The X's and O's are what we would call Hugs and Kisses blocks, okay? All right. Some of you, looks like you just need it quilt and bound. Good job. So what a Hugs and Kisses block consists of, it's actually 4 blocks, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can do these any size, all right? And the formula for doing it any size is basically half and half. So let's say you start out with a 10-inch block, okay, which is going to be 1/4 of the square. I'm going to show you some blocks here in just a minute. Let's say you do a 10-inch block and you want to snowball those corners. Then you're wondering what the size dimension should be for the snowballed corners. If you want it chunky, it should be about half the size. Okay? If I was a 10-inch block, I would put 5-inch blocks on the corners. If I wanted it more narrow, and I'm going to show you an example of that, then you would just go a little bit larger. So it just kind of depends on what you want, what is the look you're going for. Now, X's and O blocks are so cute. You could make a whole table runner of X's and O's. You could do a whole quilt. You could do maybe a pillow that just has XOXO. That would be really cute too, right? So knowing the way X and O blocks works, hugs and kisses blocks, then you can, there's all sorts of possibilities of what you can do with it. All right. So what I'm going to show you today, and I'm going to bring my computer down here, is that I have already started sewing some X and O blocks, but I want to show you basically how is it done, how does it go together, and give you a few tips along the way. So you can see that these are very chunky, and what I used here was a 5-inch background square. So whatever your X or your O is going to be is your big piece. Okay, so this one is a 5-inch square, and I used 2.5-inch squares on the front. So if I pull this down, you can see that I have a square on one corner and a square on the opposite corner. So that's how I lay it out. And the way you do snowball blocks is that you draw a line from corner to corner. So just grab your ruler and just draw that line. Now, the key to a really good snowball block, and I've shared this before. Let me find an example where I didn't do it so well. Oh yeah, this one. Okay. All right. So you've drawn on your line, right? But what I have found is when it comes to sewing, a lot of people say sew directly on the line. I actually differ just a little bit, because I say you sew just a titch off of the line. So it's like a scant off of the line. It's like one thread off of the line towards the corner. If you will do that, you will have really good blocks that line up rather than going directly on the line. Okay, so this one I went directly on the line, and oops, I veered off just even a little bit off the line. Now when I pull it back, look what happens. I don't know how well you can see that, but it doesn't go back real nicely. Okay, now it's not too bad. I could probably get away with it being caught in the seam allowance. Okay, but it may throw off this a little bit or this a little bit, okay, when it comes to sewing my blocks together. So my first tip is draw the line, but sew just a scant, just a titch off of that line. It's like one thread off of the line, and you will have much better results when it comes to having that fold over. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's the first tip I have. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you'll press your seams out. And then at this time, you could take your rotary cutter or cut with your scissors, and you just trim off that extra bulk. Okay, just so that you don't have 3 layers of fabric here. So you'll trim off that. Some people will actually just take the middle and trim off that, but I like to actually trim off both. Okay, now another idea, and we've talked about this before, is that if you don't like to if you like to save your scraps, if you don't like to waste your fabric, then another suggestion would be to sew, while you sew this, sew an additional line just 1/2 inch further, okay, at the same time. So you go zoop, zoop, right? You're just stitching along there 1/2 inch apart, and then guess what happens? If you cut down the center, you will now have not only this snowball block, but you'll have a little itty bitty half square triangle already made. Now, how fun is that? Right? So that's an idea too. If you're wanting to do kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, you're going to stitch this, stitch another line 1/2 inch away from there, sew them at the same time, cut. You have this one and you have a nice little half square triangle that you can use for another project. All right. Any questions so far on that? Let me see. Yep, you can also use the corner pop ruler. Yep, Jennifer says, definitely. Love the corner pop ruler from Tucker from Studio 180. And you can actually trim those things beforehand. Okay, so let's talk about then, how does this block come together? Well, the cool thing about X and O blocks is that you are doing the exact same block. It just differs depending on your arrangement, which is pretty cool. So if I take this block, let me see if I can get a little bit closer there. Okay, I'm going to put one here, and it's like a puzzle. Okay, I'm gonna do an X block first. So this is my top, and then I will put this one here and this one there. Ta-da! Look how cute that is. And of course you would sew the two together, and then bring them together this way. So square to square, square to square, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you're going to bring that over and sew across the middle. Okay, and you have a darling X block. Isn't that fun? I love this. Can you picture this being an entire quilt? Because this actually ends up being a 10-inch block. How fun is that? What a great way to use your scraps too, right? So, or if you have a charm pack, or if you have a layer cake, this is so doable. You can do that with this. Okay, so that's my X block, and we're going to pretend that that's sewn together and it's super chunky. Now let me show you one that I was also playing with that I didn't do those same dimensions. Okay, and there we go. It's a much thinner X block. It's not nearly as cute, I don't think, personally. But if you wanted it to be thinner, like because you're doing a railroad block, something like that, I remember one of my first quilts I did was something that looked very similar to this, but it was like a railroad block row. It was kind of fun, and I had these thin X's. Okay, so this is the same size block, but I used bigger squares. Rather than using 2.5 inch, I used 3.5 inch. And you see how narrow that becomes. Okay, so it really depends on the look you're going for. So if you're wanting to create your own pattern or your own design or something, because you're like, I want to play with this idea, I want to make some X and O blocks, then play around with the size that you want, that you like the best. Again, if you want chunkier, the ratio is going to be half and half. This was a 5-inch square. These squares ended up being 2.5 inches. All right, so chunky or thin. I love the chunky. So this is an X, but look what happens when we rotate a few blocks. This is so fun. I'm going to rotate this one, and I'm going to put that there. Ta-da! And this one there. Look at that! Whoop, 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 whoop. I have an O block. I have is this considered the hug? I think this is considered the hug. This is the kisses. I could be wrong. I don't know. So look at that. There's my O block. So do you see how it is the same exact block? It just depends on which way you rotate those. Okay, so once again, when it's like this, I've got an X. How cool is that? And if I want an O, I'm just switching this around. Boom, bada, bang. There we go. I'm going to sew those two together, sew these together, bring my rows together, and it's perfect. All right. So there you have it. This is the X and O's block. Hugs and kisses. So fun. Isn't that great? Okay. So I hope that made sense to you. Oh, I did grab, here's a 5-inch block. This is what it starts out with. And once again, here's my 2.5-inch blocks. You're just doing it on 2 sides. You draw your line, corner to corner, corner to corner. Okay? You're not going to sew directly on the line. You're going to sew a little titch off the line. And you're going to have perfect corners. And there you have it. That is theme number 2. So, any questions? Let's see. Are those what we'll do for the table runner from Comments Sold? No. Cheryl, our table runner that we showed on Comments Sold is actually done in a different way. It is, how did we do that? Well, you could do it with Easy Piecing Grid, or you don't have to. Okay, you can do it on your own, but those are actually 4 patch squares that we turned on point. So that's all of our table runner is what's that? Oh, you've got it. There we go.
Except it's a little bit different because this ties into the X blocks.
Or I should say a 9-patch square. Why did I say 4 patch?
It's actually not a 9-patch either.
Oh,
it's all on point.
It's all on point. The heart is a 4-patch turned on point.
It's all on point.
Yeah.
You don't do any patches.
You don't do it as a patch? Okay.
You could. You just have to flip and...
Right. Yeah, you could. So see how this is kind of like a 9-patch, but on point it's an X. Doop, doop. And this is part of an O. Let's see. There we go. Doop. Okay. So Jenny just grabbed me these little pieces. So, all right. Patricia asks, when do you trim to 1/4 inch? Great question. You're going to do it right after you make each of the single blocks. Okay. And then you'll pull it back and you'll trim a 1/4 inch past there. And then this comes back up. So before you put all the 4 patches together, that's what you're going to do. You're going to trim the 1/4 in there. Okay, great question, Patricia. Yep, Deborah says O represents hugs. That's right. You guys like the just a titch? Just a titch. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. Dee says she's made her X and O blocks with half square triangles. Yeah, isn't it fun that you can do it in so many different ways? I've just found this way to be pretty fun, easy, just 4 of those. Very cool. Vanessa said, oh my stars, I never knew they were the same block. Yeah, I love learning new things, don't you? That's awesome. Thanks, Vanessa. Let's see. Very true, Janet. She said you could even place them in a line going the same way and make a border. That would be really cute. Having these X's and O's lined up. That'd be a darling border. I love that. Okay. There you go. Very true. Diana said the thinner would make a nice lattice look. Yeah. Yep. This is the thinner one. And that definitely makes a nicer lattice. Great point. Okay. You guys are liking the chunky? Yep. Jennifer says, I use titch all the time. It drives her husband nuts. Yeah, just a titch. Do you want it here or here? Yeah, when that reminds me, when like I have Mike moving furniture around the house, you know, around the room, and you're like, I'm ready to, you know, move things around. I'm getting cabin fever. I got to change things around. And he'll say, well, do you want it here? And I'm like, yeah, just a titch over here. It's like, really? Oh, there you go. Oh, Debbie likes my sound effects. Zoop, zoop. I'm weird. Zoop, zoop. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Lori said she has found that the folded corner ruler is a great help to getting more accurate stitch and flip corners. Definitely. There's lots of those kinds of rulers out there. The folded corner ruler is a great one. The one that Jennifer mentioned from Studio 180, which is the corner pop, all of those work out really well. Okay. All right. Cute idea, Barbara. She said it would be fun to use it for a tic-tac-toe game. I love that. That is a really fun idea. Very good. So that is how, can you see the back of the piece? Yes. That's how these blocks were made up here. That same way. Okay, here's the back. And tomorrow, actually, just as a little preview, I'm going to be talking to you about pressing seams. And I'm going to talk about when are the times that we press to the side versus when are the times we press open, and some tips for better pressing. So that's going to be tomorrow's 3 at 3, just as a heads up.